seconds. So, welcome everybody for this match of the group phase of the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament, which is organized by the Corax Foundation from here in The Hague, but as having the presence as well of two teams representing two universities, the University of Lagos and Sofia University. So I will give the floor to my colleague, who will be hosting, Ms. Munteanu, who will continue the presentation of this match.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Larange. Hello, everyone. My name is Miruna Montano, and together with my colleague, Ms. Vale, we'll be running this match. You'll have a total of 40 minutes, and as mentioned previously, you'll receive a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a red card when your time is finished. Now I'll pass the floor to Mr. Larange to return the position, and then you'll have 5 minutes to prepare considering your position.
Yes, thank you very much. So I will share my screen in a few seconds. Oops. Up, it's coming. Oh. So normally you should see now my screen where you have a wheel spinning with, as you can see, two positions possible for your for this match. Two in favor, one for each university, and two against, one for each university. So we click and then we'll know, of course, which position it will be. So this is the University of Lagos will be in favor of the statement. So I will mention the statement now. So the statement, you were asked to prepare the topic, which is the universal social security needs to be established. So based on that randomizing of position, the University of Lagos will be defining the position in favor, meaning the universal social security needs to be established, and Sofia University will be in charge of course, defining the opposition against, meaning that the universal social security does not need to be established. But before we move to the 5 minutes of preparation, we'll do something which is, of course, giving you the possibility to introduce yourself. So we'll stop sharing my screen, and then I will give the floor to Ms. Montano, who will, of course, ask you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Larange. I would like to ask first the University of Lagos to introduce themselves, and I think I'm going to start with Ms. Alonge. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone from here. My name is Alonge Glorious Yo. I'm currently in my 4th year studying law at the University of Lagos, and it's such a huge pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alonge. I will continue with one of the team members from Sofia University, and I apologize in advance for mispronouncing your name, Ms. Donskaya.
Yeah, my name is Sofia Donskaya, and I'm in my 2nd year in University of Sofia. I'm studying international relations with a lot of law, accent on law, and that's why I decided to take part in this competition. Thank you.
Thank you. I will continue now with Mr. Michael Adedayo.
Good day, everyone. My name is Adedayo Michael. I am in my 2nd year at the University of Law. I'm University of Lagos. I study law.
Thank you. I will proceed with Ms. Merskanova.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Merjanova, and I'm currently measuring international relations at Sofia University. And it is a pleasure for me to participate in this competition. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last participant of this session, Ms. Nochku. or Miss Augusta. I think I'm mispronouncing your name very bad, so I apologize in advance for this.
Fine. Hello, everybody. My name is Augusta Njoku, and I'm a 400 level law student of the University of Lagos. I'm really happy to be a part of this competition.
Thank you. Now I will ask my colleague, Ms. Urbanova, to share the screen for the timing, and you will have 5 minutes to prepare. As a reminder, University of Lagos will be for the pro position, while Sofia University will be for the con position. And the 5 minutes are up. I would like now to invite the team of University of Lagos to take the proposition to deliver their opening statement. You'll have 4 minutes.
Can everybody hear and see me? Thank you. Despite the groundbreaking technological advancements that the world is witnessing, over 690 million people across the globe are still living in extreme poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. My name is Augusta Chiwubam Njoku, and the topic is Universal Social Security needs to be established. In the space of 4 minutes, I'll briefly explain the key term in the topic, and then I'll proceed to my argument in support of the topic, which is divided into 3 parts: poverty alleviation, economic growth, and sustainable development. Now, what is Universal Social Security? According to the Global Partnership for Universal Social Protection, Universal Social Security refers to a nationally defined system of policies and programs that provide equitable access to all people and protect them throughout their lives against poverty and risks to their livelihoods and well-being. This brings me to my first point: poverty alleviation. In every society, there are vulnerable people. Children who need child support, people of working age who are unemployed, and people living on less than $1.90 a day, whom the World Bank has described as extremely poor. Ladies and gentlemen, Universal Social Security will include creating social safety nets, such as cash transfers and benefits that will help communities deal with life challenges like unemployment, illness, or old age. For instance, the Kenyan government's improvements of social protection coverage through the 2011 National Social Protection Policy has reduced poverty in the country over the past 10 years. Now, this is just one out of many such social protection schemes, but the positive results prove that establishing a national policy for universal social security will undeniably improve the standard of living of all poor and vulnerable people. Secondly, economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, when social security is universal, it targets both the formal and informal sectors in a nation, because according to Article 22 of the UDHR, everyone, as members of the society, has the right to social security. So if all countries can provide universal social benefits for their combined workforce, labor productivity will increase immensely, because the truth is the young factory worker and the small-scale business owner will exhibit better productivity if the government provides them with basic health care. For instance, several years ago, the Chinese economy was experiencing a tragic downfall. But one of the tactics employed by the Chinese government in rebuilding their economy was an effective social security system. And now, according to recent World Bank statistics, China currently has one of the largest economies in the world with a GDP of $14.72 trillion. This is evidence that universal social security induces economic growth. To my third point, sustainable development. Strictly speaking, sustainable development is a long-term goal that will require countries to work hard for the best results. That hard work is the establishment of universal social security. The other party might say that to successfully introduce universal social security, countries need to overcome the challenges of improving social protection, such as implementation and funding. Fortunately, as shown by Indonesia, implementation can be successfully done through interventive policies for institutional strengthening, budgeting, and evaluation of social protection schemes. Regarding funding, aside income from taxes, countries are encouraged to consider sources like philanthropy, private voluntary funding, and social impact investments. If all countries can take such determined steps to achieve universal social security, attaining the sustainable development goals by 2030 will become a reality. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the options before us are crystal clear. Remain in stagnancy and sentence more people to a lifetime of extreme poverty, or take a stand towards poverty alleviation, economic growth, and sustainable development by embracing the establishment of universal social security. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like now to invite the team of Sofia University taking the composition to deliver their opening statement. You'll have 4 minutes.
Sure, but before I start, am I audible and visible? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Rob? That's a naughty word. We never rob. Just sort of borrow a bit from those who can afford it. This is a quote by the famous character Robin Hood. Ironically suggests some other point of view on today's ideals. Good evening, colleagues and honorable judges. My name is Sofia, and as today's opposition team, we believe that the statement that universal social security must be established is not true. But before I come to my arguments, I want to give you some definitions. What is the idea of universal social security? According to the International Labour Organization, social security is a comprehensive approach designed to protect the individual from any uncertainties. Universal social security ensures that anyone who needs social protection can access it at any time. It sounds truly promising from the first hearing, but in reality it is just what Robin Hood implied: taxation of some, but benefits for everyone. Despite the emphasis on social security and social protections as human rights, only a small segment of the world's population, only about 20% of the world's working population, actually enjoys the right, and more than a half of the world's population doesn't have this right at all. Together with the crisis around the world, for example, the COVID crisis, which has continued for over 2 years, the food and energy crisis, the climate change, the world economy is more likely to worsen due to such implications. At some time, the possibility of running out of money will reach a threshold where no advantages will be supplied to anyone. Another strong argument in favor of our hypothesis is that even the non-universalized social security has not produced spectacularly achievements yet. According to OECD, poor nations spend about 7% of their GDP on social security, while OECD countries spend roughly 3 times this amount. Only 45% of the world's population is effectively covered by at least one social safety benefit, leaving the other 55%, 4 billion people, absolutely vulnerable. The reason for this is a shortage of funds in underdeveloped countries. Universal social security is achieved through national policies and programs that provide equitable access to all people and protect them throughout their lives against poverty risks to their livelihoods and well-being. But in order to do that, we need adequate mechanisms for providing due to a high risk of fraud. One more reason why we are opposing this motion is the big difference in the demographic aspect. Let's take as an example our country, Bulgaria. The rapidly growing aging population is becoming a problem for the demographic structure. As a result of an increased demand for pensions, funds for all other benefits are being reduced. This is directly tied to the fact that the more service is provided, the lower quality of it is. If there are thousands of patients for one doctor, it's either the time that will not be sufficient to give us a great benefit, or there will be a huge queue which will hinder someone's high need of medical assistance. Last but not least is the inequality it provides throughout the life course of individuals. It is just not fair that some of us have to pay tax, but be in the same condition as someone working in the informal sector, getting what? The profit without taxation, and also the benefit from the state. Those are the reasons why the motion should fall. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite now team of University of Lagos to proceed with their first rebuttal. You will have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Am I visible and audible?
Yes,
Am I visible and audible?
yes you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Perfect. Honorable judges, the fact that 690 million people now live in extreme poverty shows that universal social security is not just a need, but a necessity. The arguments of the opposing side seems to question the problem of fund and inequality and taxation. Also, they may mention that only a small proportion of the world population have access to social security. But first, on the last point they made, it is important to note that the whole essence of making universal social security a thing is because of the fact that we fear that a small population of the world are enjoying from it. Therefore, it is important for the rest of the world to have access to it in order to gain the benefits of social security. The importance of social security, we've told you in our opening speech, includes economic development and a plethora of others. As regards the question around funding, we think the alternative means of income can be used to supplement state social assistance schemes, including international aid, social investments, private voluntary contribution, as well as proper implementation of social insurance schemes. Also, regarding the question of inequality that has been brought by the opposing side, we say that indeed, when various social security mechanisms actually exist in a state, we have the social insurance scheme, which contributes to those who actually have economic strength. But also, it is important for the state to try to supplement or to help those who are actually vulnerable. So regardless of the argument about the inequality, we think that universal social security actually gives more equality than the opposing side seem to portray. Also, it is important for us to state in this point that the problem of funding does not even really necessarily apply or arises, because countries like China have found ways to verify true facial recognition, and this have greatly reduced the possibility of fraud. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like now to give the floor to Sofia University to deliver their first rebuttal.
The first proposition speaker has told us that universal social security would remove poverty and inflation. But my argument is that the world is going through a period of crisis right now. Therefore, the social security system will be much more effective if it focuses on exclusively some crucial areas of protection. To illustrate, as a result of climate change, there seems to be a greater likelihood of severe weather occurrence affecting a wide range of individuals, both medically and economically. In that circumstances, it's necessary for a quick response from the state in this specific area. My second point is that universal social security is practically impossible in more liberal and democratic countries. It is attributable to the fact that in order to achieve universal social security, the country will have to engage in many aspects of our lives, also including production, import, export, and so on, due to the high risk of fraud within the system, as our second speaker will clarify later on. Another objection is the coverage of migrant workers, which will more likely lead to population dissatisfaction, as it is no secret that most of the time native population of countries oppose such measures. Once more, I will say that expectation to different nations regarding social security is different. Most of the countries with a higher GDP that are able to cover the needs of most of our people will be expected to provide a greater service, which, as I mentioned in our opening speech, is quite impossible due to a high inquiry. And I want to call your attention to the important point that our opponents have not addressed yet. Oops, sorry. Is the high rate of aging population. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like now to invite the University of Lagos to deliver their second rebuttal.
Honorable judges, we appreciate the fact that the opposing side have conceded to one important point, that a wide range of individuals in the world are not properly covered. And that is basically the principle behind universal social security. As regards to social security, it's been not possible in liberal democracies. To this, we say no. Countries in Africa, for example, Namibia, and several other countries which operate liberal democracies have shown and have proven that indeed universal social security is possible because they have expanded their social security coverages. Also, on the last point, which the opposite side made before, as regards taxation, we think that it is the responsibility of the state, regardless of the situations or economic restraint, to try to provide means for these people to survive, especially when the rate of poverty or unemployment is ridiculously high. So we think that taxing the economy to save the economy is only logical, rather than leaving these people to die just to save the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like now to proceed with the second rebuttal of the Sofia University.
Before I start, am I audible and visible?
Perfectly clear. You may proceed.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, the proposition team said that universal social security would improve the standard of living of all people, will properly cover the vulnerable, and will be the key to economic development in many countries. But our team cannot agree with this position because, unfortunately, many countries around the world are facing demographic crisis. It is due to various factors, but mostly of high mortality and an aging population, for example. In this country, the introduction of universal social security will prove to be a time-ticking bomb. Why? You would ask. Because the small percentage of the working population will have to bear on their shoulders the huge number of people who are in these vulnerable categories. The imbalance and the overload of the system at some point will actually cause it to collapse. Therefore, in such countries, universal social security is an adequate measure, and it will not improve the social environment. It will not lead to social justice, but quite the opposite. Our team strongly believes that social security is rather an utopian concept, inapplicable in many countries around the world due to different crucial factors. And it is not possible to be turned into reality. Social justice, peace, and real protection of the individuals in different countries can only be achieved through the implementation of adequate measures that meet the concrete needs of the population of the current country. So thank you.
Thank you. Now we would like to hear the closing statement from University of Lagos.
Just before I start, am I audible and visible enough?
Perfectly clear. You may proceed.
Thank you. The Deputy Director of the International Labour Organization, Deborah Greenfield, when asked to explain the need for universal social security, gave the simplest answer. Poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere, and universal social security, which encompasses security for anyone in need at any age, helps to ensure against that threat. My name is Alonge Gloriozio, and in 2 minutes, I will be giving a summary of the argument for universal social security. Now, we have stated that universal social security, in line with Sustainable Development Goal 1 and Target 1.3, reduces and prevents poverty through protection from the harsh realities of life. It ensures that social security is available to everyone without discrimination. Our counterpart colleagues' biggest concern has been funding for developing countries, which we have been able to prove through listing various sources of funding does not hold water. This position is further buttressed by the calculations of the World Bank, which proves that the overall package for 4 universal social schemes would cost 2 developing countries, Kenya and Indonesia, just 1.5% and 1.8% of their GDP, respectively. We now conclude our arguments with the words of famous British writer J.R. Tolkien, who advises that in making plans for the future, one should not rule out the possibility of a vicious live dragon. While I do hope that no country shares its borders with a live dragon, the COVID-19 pandemic has taught the world a lesson. We are all vulnerable to the risks and uncertainties of life, and adequate planning, which includes universal social security, is much needed to make us truly resilient. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we would like to hear the closing statement from the Sofia University.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what have we told you today? To sum up, the establishment of universal social security is an applicable measure in many countries around the world due to different factors, but mainly because of the declination of the working population, the low human capital, the low gross domestic product, the increasing of the external debts of many countries around the world, etc. Another reason for an applicability of the universal social security in many countries is actually the worsening demographic statistics and the higher divorce rate, leading to a lot of issues and conflicts within the societies. In addition, as one of the greatest economists of all times once said, Milton Friedman, no one spends others' money, others' people money, the way they spend their own. So due to the high chance of experiencing fraud and also the impossibility to cover potential risks for violating the system, we believe that this approach is inefficient. It is also inapplicable because maintaining universal social security systems is too expensive and very likely to cause imbalances in different areas in many countries on a global scale. So universal social security will also be an adequate measure, an adequate approach in situation of crisis that require a concentration of the resources in concrete areas to achieve balance. This certainly proves that the universal social security is rather utopian. Thank you.
Thank you. This would conclude our today's session. And before giving the floor to our present judge, till he will finalize his notes regarding this session, I would like to give the floor to you, our participants, to offer a little feedback of today's session, today's match. How did you feel? And I would like to start maybe with, again, Mr. Alonge.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy for one that the match went seamlessly. I mean, nobody had internet. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doshkaya?
Well, I will also want to thank everyone here. It was a great experience. To be honest, it's my first debate in such kind, so I was really excited to participate, and I'm really happy to be here. So thank you once more.
Thank you. I will proceed with Ms. Augusta.
Well, in the entire match, it was quite obvious that everybody did their homework. So I really enjoyed it. The back and forth.
Thank you. Ms. Merskanova?
For me, it was really exciting and interesting, and I'm glad that I'm here. And I wish to all of the participants good luck.
Now, on a last note from the participant side, Mr. Michael?
Yes, it was a very exciting experience, and I really enjoyed the topic, especially the research, and it was amazing. It is amazing. It was an amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you, and we are delighted to hear that you enjoyed today's match. I would like to give the floor now to our present judge, Mr. Correa, if he's ready to offer informal feedback.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Well, congratulations. I thought both teams did a very good job. I was impressed. I did notice some things that could be improved upon, some slight structural things that seem simple but do go a long way in improving how you debate. So the first thing I think that's important for the first speaker is to make sure they kind of outline exactly the arguments that they're going to make straight away, so that the audience and the judges know exactly what they're going to hear and they can listen more carefully to your specific arguments. So I think both speakers could probably do that a little bit better for next time. So make sure you have a clear outline of your arguments before you go into them. So now I know, okay, I need to listen for argument 1, 2, and 3. Instead of having like a long speech and then I have to try to figure out what your arguments are as I go along. So it's a very simple thing, but it will make your debating skills so much more efficient. Another thing, with a couple of arguments I wasn't particularly sold on. So remember, with arguments, the key to arguments is you always want to make, a premise followed by another premise, and if you follow these premises, then the conclusion is inevitable. Like the classic example is, Socrates is a man, all men are mortal, therefore Socrates is mortal. Some of your arguments, I think, missed a couple of premises to make that conclusion inevitable. I felt that some arguments were a little bit weak. They just, your premises didn't actually lead to your conclusion very well. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. It's like the arguments I'm making, does it make a logical conclusion towards the end? And I think for both teams, some arguments were a bit on the weaker side. But again, some of your arguments I thought were very strong. I think the argument you made, I think the Logos team made about the GDP only costing about 1.5% of GDP. I thought that was very strong. I would have liked to see the Sofia team maybe try to rebut that, because I thought that was a very strong argument and it went unanswered by Sofia. So maybe something to keep in mind as well when you're debating is, keep an eye for the kind of strongest arguments that the other side have made and try to kind of rebut it in some way instead of just leaving it hanging there, because I thought that was very persuasive. When it comes to rebuttals in general, the first thing you want to do when you do a rebuttal is that you always want to clearly restate the other side's position so that the audience and the judges know exactly what you're going to rebut. And you want to do this accurately. So you don't want to straw man the other side. You want to accurately say, this is the argument the other side made. This argument is wrong. And they can be wrong in many different ways. It can be like factually wrong. It can be legally wrong. It can be logically wrong. It could be morally wrong. So I want you to tell me how is this argument wrong? Is it legally, factually, morally wrong? And then tell me your counterpoint to their argument and make it really simple and clean and structured. And then I can go, yeah, that argument they made was wrong because you told me in a clear way why it was wrong. It was factually wrong. It was legally wrong. Those are probably the most prominent reasons an argument will be wrong in this kind of debate. But apart from that, I thought you guys did very well. Going to be constantly improving your debating skills as you practice and practice. But I thought you guys did an excellent job. And that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Correa, and thank you for all of our participants. I would now like to pass the floor to Mr. Larange and Mr. Branava for the final remarks, and we can conclude this session.
Yes, thank you very much to everybody. Thank you for your performance. Sorry, the results will be out in a few days after the weekend. So Mr. Correa, who is a lecturer in the university here in the Netherlands, will be actually issuing his written feedback as well, not only, of course, I would say, the oral version that you got, but as well you will receive as well the feedback and the scores of the two other judges, which will be added up in order to give the overall score of each team. So that will be published and as well sent by email. Another element to be aware that next week we will have as well an event for all the students who want to attend, which is about as well developing several skills, particularly for future lawyers like you. So please do not hesitate to join. So voilà, so this is actually what we wanted to tell, that you did a great job, and now it will be the side of the judge, obviously. So many thanks, Ms. Munteanu, many thanks, Ms. Veil, many thanks to the students, and many thanks, Mr. Correa, as well. So thank you again for your participation, and we are looking forward for, of course, your next match. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.